My sisters are the best gift to me in the world. The best gift. I cannot be in this planet without my sisters. And I've had many women in the past that I've had to let go because I didn't trust them. Because they showed to me that I couldn't trust them. But that's okay. They just made me a better woman. They gave me lessons. I'm also grateful for them. We continue cultivating more sisterhoods. I'm sure that we both invoked and evoked some things in each other and pushed buttons. But this is the journey. This is the journey.
Welcome, tribe. I'm Mayah Rose.
And I'm Gerald Rogers. We're about to embark on another mind-expanding episode where we dive deep into the realms of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
This is a transformational experience of healing, manifestation, increased clarity, flow, and alignment.
So join us on this sacred journey as we receive the codes of transformation from scientists and psychonauts, shamans, tantra masters, mystics, and more.
Together, we'll unravel the secrets of plant medicine, sex magic, and other tools to tap into higher states of consciousness.
So why are we here? To answer the call, to share our passions and be advocates for alternative healing.
So get ready for a ride that transcends the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary, because living a legendary life is not just a choice.
It's a sacred adventure.
Ooh, today we are going to have a deep and I think delicious conversation about sex magic and Tantra and what this all means. And I have to tell you how Luna Ora first came into my life. So I have some dear friends. They, within their coupleship, were exploring how to deepen their connection and heal through some past traumas. And I saw a post of my friend on Facebook saying she was working with this woman, and she posted a picture of this book. Sex Magic Evolution, Using Sexual Power to Heal, Unite, Awaken, and Change the World. And immediately I not only did the title really interest me, but I had full body tingles. I said, okay, I've got to read that book. It has a frequency that I need. And sure enough, it talks about the sex magic schools of Isis and Lilith. And by the grace of God and Goddess herself, I was able to connect with Luna. Reached out to my friend that's working with her after reading this book. And I'm going to give you a chance to talk a minute, Luna, I promise. But I'm literally reading this book and I'm thinking, this woman is putting into words everything that I've been thinking. It just resonated fully with my body. So I had to meet you. And of course, after having our conversation, I'm like, I've got to have you on the podcast. So Luna, so excited to have you here. I know this is one of several books that you've written, but I would first just like to know, how did you come about all this information? How did you get started with sex magic and Tantra and all these ancient wisdoms that you so eloquently write about in these books?
First of all, thank you for having me. You're so sweet, and I'm so happy to have met you, sister. And, just the way you felt very connected to my book the first time, I felt very safe with you the first time we spoke. I'm like, I'm just going to open myself up to you completely. And I'm really grateful for that safe space. So I know people are expecting a super magical story, but really one day I just started many, many years ago when no one talks about sex magic on YouTube. I just knew that I wanted to talk about sex magic. Just information I just knew that I had in my body, and I just started talking about it. A few months later, and I didn't even post it. I was afraid that people would see. I didn't want my family or anyone to hear me, because it was okay, I'm already crazy to everyone, so I didn't want to push more buttons. Although I like pushing buttons, that's kind of what I do. But then I went to New Zealand on one of my amazing adventures, and on my 33rd birthday, I was my what I call the technical initiation of me with the temple begun, whereas this massive downloads and mostly just knowing. It was you you got 1,000 years in a second, kind of condensed, and it was this deep knowing. Is basically they said, not in words, but in just, I don't know what it is, energy codes. They that's how they speak to me, really, the sisters. Because they're a part of me and I'm a part of them at the end of the day. Basically saying your initiation is starting. And again, at that time I was still doing videos about this topic, but my initiation started then on my 33rd birthday. And they said, you cannot share what we will teach you for 2 years. So like hold it back, because that was also one of my things, like holding back, and like you have to finish your initiation, and then you can share more knowledge. And so yeah, that's kind of like the short story of it.
I love that. And there's so much just even in that I'd like to point out. First of all, is it okay if I share one of the things that's in this book? Because
Sure.
but it talks about the power of the number 33, and how when you put the 2 3s together, it creates an 8, which is the infinity symbol. And I think it's so interesting that this started happening to you on your 33rd birthday. I know in the Bible it talks about Christ being 33 when he really went through his initiation and started teaching and preaching. So there's definitely significance in that number. And what I love about who you are and the way that you channel and talk about truth is, it's my belief, first of all, that there is information that many of us as priestesses carry, and it's just suddenly remembered, right? From past lifetimes or from the universe, the energies that are wanting it to come through at this time. And some of the initiations that we get, people will go to other people to learn about things. So, I'm a Reiki master. I went to somebody who had been initiated as a Reiki master, been initiated. But where did that original knowledge come from? It came from somebody sitting and connecting with the information on a grander scale. That's where all of the religions have come from. That's where all of these amazing methods that we have for healing have all come from somebody actually listening to the information out there. So when you talk about this information of the sisters, you were initiated from source, which is the purest way to be initiated. And I love how you talk about that, and how you just, you're like, hey, this is what happened to me. This was the initiation I went through. And I know you have several books out, so I want to talk about some of the other books in a moment, but I want to talk about some of the things that came through to you in this book and why it's important. And first of all, I just want to ask you, why do you feel like it's important that we know this information now about sex magic and really these practices that go back to this ancient lineage of these temples and these priestesses? Why is this all coming through again now?
Yeah, and thank you. That's a great question. And it's not just important, it's vital that we know this knowledge now. And I just want to, before I answer this, I want to go back a little bit for about something that you said. I want to just be clear that I'm not the one who received this information from the Sisters of the Temple because I'm special in some way. Sure, we are all special in some way. The main reason that I've received, first of all, I was in the temple. Like you would read in my book, The Last Priestess, like the story of the fall of the temple and like my story from there. But it's mainly because of my very strong stubbornness as well as integrity. So they knew that I would protect this knowledge with everything that I have. I'm Israeli, so I'm tough as hell. And I was born and raised to be tough and very protective. And becoming, like, entering into my own priestesshood and my own initiation, which will never end. My initiation will never end. And I'm very grateful for that. It really made me even to this more lioness warrior that is very aware of my integrity, that I constantly have to keep my integrity. I have to constantly keep my purity, body, mind, and spirit. It's not easy. I'm still a human. I'm still making mistakes, but it's that, like my work is not the channel. The channel comes naturally, but my work is to keep my vessel pure all the time. So now going back to your question about why it is vital to have this knowledge is because I don't know if I should give you the long answer or I'm going to start with the short one. And then if you want me to elaborate more, we are at the age of truth, as you know. The truth is coming out. It's kind of like, it's a shit show, really. I mean, all the shit is coming out into the surface. Sorry for my word, but it's coming out into the surface. All the ugliness, all the shadows that we have been suppressing and hiding and putting under the rug for but it's there. It's coming up. And we are now, hopefully, more and more people will see what is really happening and what has been really happening. And I like to put it in a form of a story, because if I sit here and lecture about specific things, it's not going to penetrate to the subconscious mind of people. So I make it into a story, because then even if they think I'm crazy, the truth the codes of truth is still penetrating their subconscious mind. So I will tell you a story. There are these people, or, I call them the dark wizards, because that's what they really are. They are very baneful magic, evil black magic wizards who have been manipulating, using humanity's power, which mostly comes from imagination and our sexual power, using our power, harnessing it, manipulating it, and turning it back against us. This is actually what black magic is to the core. It's kind of like a mirror, like they take, because the darkness, like the black magic doesn't have power of its own. It takes from the light. So they take from the light, which is mostly women and children. Why? Because women are the life force. We are womb holders. We hold life. And then you have children which hold the codes of imagination, the purest form of imagination. And so what they do is mostly they take the energy, the life force from these light sources and manipulate it and turn it back against humanity. Obviously, this is a big rabbit hole, which I can go into, but it is vital that we understand and go back to the original codes of the sacred union. Because the sacred union, like the true sacred union, not the BS that a lot of Tantra teachers are trying to sell today in a beautiful, Instagram post. The real original codes of the sacred union embody with them initiation, which we have lost. We have completely lost the rights of initiation. It is vital for our human evolution and consciousness and the union of the conscious and the subconscious mind to go through proper initiation, which is, again, this is a whole rabbit hole on its own. And then the sacred union also holds within it the purity and the sacredness. And what is that? That includes many things. That includes, what do we eat? How do we live? How do we speak to other people? Are we speaking words of lies, of manipulation, of hate? Or are we speaking truth? Are we making sure that everything that comes out of us is truth, right? Includes so many things that we have lost. So when people truly walk again the path of the sacred union, the way it should be, not the fluffy version, we will change the world. The dark forces will literally have no hold on humanity anymore. None. Because the sacred union brings humans to the most pure, but also the most sovereign space. You cannot fool a person who has reached a full integrated inner sacred.
Yeah.
So hopefully that.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to riff on that for a moment, because in the book, Sex, Magic, Evolution, and I haven't read the other ones, so I can't wait. I have them on order. They're going to come. But one of the things you talk about, you talk a lot about sacred union, and this is something that is really important to me. First of all, I want to touch on speaking the truth. I was just doing a Hathor initiation and She of 1,000 Voices, and really just the power of what we speak in creation and what we speak in sacred union, how we use this energy to create and what we're creating. And something that you talk about in the book is that there's this idea right now in society that men operate from their sacral chakra, right? They're driven by sex. And women operate from their heart. They're driven by love and by care. But actually, the truth is that the divine masculine in the wholeness operates from the heart, and the divine feminine in wholeness operates from the womb. And to me, this means a couple different things. And I'd like to talk about this, because first of all, there's the sacred union within self, right? The sacred union of the masculine and feminine within self, which connects the heart and the womb together. The sexual and the sacredness. And one of the ways you start your book is you're like, sexuality is sacredness, right? Something like that. And I was like, boom, you got me right from the get-go. I'm like, yes. But then on a level where you are in a partnership with somebody and you're practicing sacred union with a partner, and you have a feminine and a masculine, it's really the womb of the woman that heals the heart of the man. And it's the healed heart of the man that heals humanity. Because all wars and crises are created from this unhealed or hurt heart of man. And then, the hurt heart of woman reacts, and that's what creates this. But if we can really create the sacred union within ourselves and also within our divine union partnerships, then this is what brings together the healing of the heart and the womb. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because as you said, this is how we overcome the darkness in the world. This is how we unite within ourselves and within partnerships through sex magic to shed light and really bring a new level to humanity, a new awareness, a new earth. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
Exactly. So many. You said it so beautifully, first of all. Can I ask you first, when you read that and you had that moment, you this is something that I know that you knew inside of you already when you
Yeah.
read those words. What how should I ask this? What shift happened in you, for example, personally or in your relationship when that truth kind of like rose
Yeah.
up again?
So what my experience was is that when Gerald and I first got together, he'd had a lot of trauma with the feminine. He didn't trust the feminine. I'd had some trauma with the masculine. But what I noticed was that every time we would have this beautiful sexual experience, afterwards I would lay and I would put my hand on his heart. This is just intuitively, didn't even really wasn't consciously aware or trying to do anything. But as I put my hand on his heart, I could feel his heart healing. I could feel the energy from my hand going into his heart. And it was almost like it was weaving or putting together a puzzle or, weaving these fabrics back together to strengthen him. And over time, I could really feel him step into the wholeness of his heart. And at the same time, he was stepping more and more into this expansion of his king, his divine masculine. And as he did that, then we would make love and I felt more and more safe. And then I would have more and more intense orgasms, which eventually led to cosmic orgasms, which now I'm having this DMT burst in my brain and going out into the multiverse and coming back with information. I could tell you some stories that are just, they're unexplainable other than I got information from the cosmos, numbers, information, downloads. But it was this beautiful dance between his heart healing and my womb opening up more and more to him. So when I read that in the book, you're right. It wasn't something that was like, oh, wow, this is a totally new concept. It was, although I'd never heard it in words, it was just a remembrance and also a validation of what had already been occurring within our relationship that was so healing, so healing.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This first of all, I love hearing that because again, it's very rare to have those moments. And like I told you when I saw you guys together, like you got this. Like you have a beautiful this third energy that you've created together and it could tell. So you know how we already know that, it's very women have to be very careful with who they put in their body because we are the vessel, the men are the channel, and we accumulate everything. We like a sponge, we take energy from everything, not just in sex. So we just take on like everything. We're an actual
okay, wait,
vessel.
can I pause you for just a second? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just have to pause when you say that because I have read this part of your book to so many women who have burst into tears when they have read. There's a part in the book where you talk about that, where you're like, a priestess in any moment is feeling all the energies of nature and the world and all the people around her. And anyway, that's just, I would love for you just to say that again, because I want the women that are listening to this that feel like they feel all the energies to be validated. So sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah. That's very important. It's very important. We don't have all of this validations, and not a lot of women get to have, we're not lucky like we are, and have these conversations with other sisters and understand I'm not crazy. I'm a woman. I am a magical being, and people like society has taken me for granted. The fact that I have a womb, the fact that I can birth life into the world. This is pure freaking magic. I mean, come on. We are literally a vessel between two worlds, to say the least. So yeah, going back to answering the other question, what we don't talk about enough is how it's very, very dangerous. Actually, in fact, the way I teach it, it's even more dangerous for men to choose their sexual partners. And I will explain why. Right? Like, because, people have to think, oh, even in the spiritual community, so women have to be more careful because, again, we are the vessels. And yes, we are the vessels. We accumulate everything. We take on everything. But you have to understand this basic thing. When a man enters a woman, he does not just penetrate her pussy and her body. He literally enters a universe. Now, the way this woman has created her universe, what she feeds it, her energy, her life force, her pain, her trauma, her anger, everything. He enters that. And he doesn't just affect her, she actually affects him way more than he will affect her. Because I'm not sorry to say this because it's truth, and I'm never going to apologize for truth, but the woman is more powerful than the man energetically. Yeah. So, it's just the way it is. The woman, you're entering a space of transmutation, of actual, like the woman, and this is actually what I teach women about sexual trauma and rape, is that I'm actually doing a series of videos about sexual trauma. Obviously, I cannot talk about everything on YouTube. I teach more in my initiation, the priestesses, but it is insane that when I work with women on sexual trauma and rape, that the shift and the empowerment, even from the worst rape possible, can happen instantly. Why? Because when a woman gets that she is the universe, that she holds all the power, and that she literally has the power to ruin this man. And this is not an invitation to ruin men. My work is for us to empower men and to awaken them into their divine masculine. But I'm saying we have that power. And that's, by the way, the same power that men know that we have and subconsciously have been trying to suppress for so long because they're so freaking scared of it.
Yeah.
So how do we get back into our divine feminine? How do we take ownership of our shadow and our shit as well to become empowered women, to empower ourselves and our sisters first, so that then we can expand that to the men in our lives, to our brothers? And of course, always have the boundaries and never take anything less than his God, ever, not even in a brother. And how can we awaken the divine masculine in men? Not just with sleeping with him, just by having a conversation, just by looking, just by being in the space with other men.
Well,
how can we affect the energy of the world around us? Because we have a womb. We don't have to have physical sexual penetration with someone to affect their energy. How do we learn how to do that? Unite with the universe at all, like all together, and transmute all the shadow that we see in the universe. That's the real work of a sex priestess.
And this is the most powerful way that I've ever experienced or found to be able to transmute energy, to be able to not only on the microcosm, but on the macrocosm. Like I feel the world transmuting through me when I'm in these spaces. I want to point out something you said, because when I read this, I was like, yes. There were so many times in the book where I would like take pictures and I would text it to somebody. I would like be reading in my bed out loud or even silently, and Gerald be there. I'd be like, oh my gosh, you've got to hear. Yes. And that's funny. I just accidentally opened a sex transmutation. That's just what we were talking about. But one of the things that I really loved in this book that you said is that in these ancient practices that these priestesses used to do, these men would come to the temple after war and they would be basically purified, cleansed of their trauma through these sexual practices. But in order for a priestess to allow a man to enter her, he had to go through a series of tests and he had to prove himself worthy. And today the same is true. Like what you said about only let a God enter you. If this man has not passed the tests to be a complete vessel of safety, to hold the container, to be a pure energy that enters within you, and then to make sure you're holding that pure space too, don't do it. I think there are so many women that just feel like, well, I've said no enough, so I'll do it. Or what's a one night stand? Or this would be fun. And maybe we're all a little bit different in different places along our path of evolution. But this really, really struck me because there's been times in my past where I've been like, I don't really want to do it. Not feeling aligned with him, but what the heck, kind of a feeling. And once you have this information and really know what you're capable of, it really just is, a man does not enter you unless he has deemed himself worthy of a God, because this is the space in this universe. Yeah. And I just want to talk again a little bit. I know you already touched on this a lot, but why this is so important, not only for us as individuals, but also collectively as a society, why we really hold these practices sacred.
Yeah, it's very important to talk about. So first of all, like I said before, when I said, don't accept anything less than a man's God, again, I didn't mean just your sexual lover or your husband or your boyfriend. Any man that is around you. Because when we begin to walk in this path of our divine feminine, again, this is not a fluffy work. This is like moment to moment, surrender to the moment, while at the same time uniting with the moment and being very present in your body and with everything that you're feeling. And so many layers, right, that are happening at the same time for a woman. And so I don't accept less than a God even in my brothers. Like I've had to say goodbye to so many dear brothers of mine because I don't accept that. Because if I continue to accept a certain behavior, a disrespect for my sister, disrespect for women, disrespect for life, then I am without words telling this brother, this is okay.
Yeah.
You are still going to receive my divine feminine energy and love acting like this. And if I don't have respect for a man, I cannot lie. I cannot live again in a lie. If I don't have respect for a man, then I will not entertain this behavior, and I will not give him my divine feminine energy in any way. And without words, I'm reminding him who he really is. I'm actually doing him a favor. So I want to say something about your question. So when I constantly say, be careful the men that enter you, that you allow to enter you, I don't want women to get to the point of doing it from fear, right? Of like, oh, this man's energy is going to affect me because he's somehow more powerful than me and he's going to affect my energy. No. This is coming from a place of like, I am the temple. I literally am the temple. When you walk into the most sacred place in the universe, you will take your shoes off. You will clean your shoes with water and soap. You will pray. You will prepare yourself. You will not immediately, like I write in my books and also the other books that you haven't read. Like I in the last priestess too, I mentioned the different rooms of the temple too, because they are a mirror as well of us. There are many gates to enter, to penetrate a woman, just like there are many gates to penetrate the temple. And even with a sacred union, it's not, oh, great, we're ready. We've done our meditation and we talked too much about our emotions and now we're ready for a sacred union. This is not how it works. It's about really taking the time for initiating each other personally. We take our personal initiation. And then there is a period of, again, purification, preparation, understanding, really grasping the power of what we're doing here. And understanding that, us having sex right now is a way for us to communicate, not just for our own sake, but to communicate for the sake of life itself, for the sake of what, for me, for example, I know that my sacred union is about sacredness, is about truth and sacredness, most of all, because that will bring everything with it. But I'm diversing. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question, because I know you asked me another thing, but my brain right now is in 10 different places.
We're women, right? So we're dealing with all the feelings at once and thoughts at once.
I love it.
Right? Well, I want to get into some of the things that are in your other books and why I'm excited to read them. But before I do that, something that's really strong in my field of awareness now and that I would love to speak to with you is this idea. We've talked a lot about what men we allow to enter a space, but one of the things that I would love to hear your thoughts on are these ideas of how we can support each other as sisters, because for millennia, we've been forced to turn each other in as witches, or even just climbing the corporate ladder in the 80s and having to, be in competition with other women. And what I'm coming to realize is the real power of the priestess is in groups. And when we unite together, and there's just this feeling of like, Who can I trust? And I just even notice within me, if I'm being completely honest, I still have a little residue of feeling like, oh, can I trust this woman? Is this a competition? Is this, what's going on here? And to the point where I actually had a dream the other day. And I think one of the paths of the priestess, at least for me, has been, if there's anything that's not resonating, it comes up hard and fast and is like, this exists inside of you.
Yeah.
You take care of it now, and you can't do anything until you take care of it. Like literally, I will be laying there crying or just feeling all this emotion, and it will be like, nope, you can't meet with clients. You can't do that. You can't, if it isn't alchemized or addressed now, you aren't going to move forward. So I even had to the point where I had this dream the other night where I realized there's still jealousy and envy existing within sisters that are rising, and I could only recognize that because that was in me. So I really had to sit with that and had to think about it and feel it and ask, how do I alchemize this? So I know that's a lot of thoughts, but what do we do as sisters to really like unite and support each other and transmute these feelings that have been existing for millennia? What do we do in that?
First of all, thank you. I freaking love you. This is literally what we do. We talk and we process all the ugliest crap that is coming out for us. And jealousy is real. And it's not going to stop and go away just because I'm a spiritual teacher and I talk about, no, trust me, it exists in me. It exists in every woman. And the fact that we're sitting here talking about jealousy openly for other women to also hear and say, it's okay. And it's good. And I'm proud of you for opening up and talking about this ugly part that you don't want to look at yourself. I don't want to look at my ugly jealousy. It's ugly. Last month, for me, it came really strong. For example, like I saw this, other woman who was talking about something and jealousy came up. Oh my goodness. It just like flooded me. And I had to go deep into journey. Dive into it. Jealousy flooded me to the point where I almost felt hatred. And so really like going into that, yuckiness, gross, like I should not feel like that. I'm Luna Ora, this is not me, but no, you can't do that. I had to go into it because if I escape it, then what good is everything that I'm teaching other people? What good? How can I transmute shadow in the world if I can't transmute my own? So again, giving your sisters the safe space to talk, you're feeling like shit. Let's talk about it. Like, let's process this. Where is it coming from? Like with my sisters are the best gift to me in the world. The best gift. I cannot be in this planet without my sisters. And I've had many women in the past that I've had to let go because I didn't trust them, because they showed to me that I couldn't trust them. But that's okay. They just made me a better woman. They gave me lessons. I'm also grateful for them. We continue cultivating more sisterhoods. I'm sure that we both invoked and evoked some things in each other and pushed buttons. But this is the journey. This is the journey. And really, sisterhood will change the world. This is the most important thing. We cannot reach the sacred union without sacred sisterhood. That comes first. And then we give a beautiful mirror to our men and our brothers to create a healthy brotherhood. This is what we do. So sisterhood is number one. And yes, you need a sister that you will be able to be so open with. Like the day that we spoke before, and I felt so horrible after we spoke because I'm like, oh my God, I was too vulnerable. I showed her like this part of me that, I feel scared and I'm, I was very open with you about things. But then I'm like, no, she made me feel so safe. That's sisterhood, So yeah, I'm sorry that I dumped all my shit on you, but also thank you for giving me a safe space to do that. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Well, I really love that. And I think the things that are standing out the most to me during this conversation is also just getting rid of competition and perfectionism too, of realizing that we're all in this path together. And that means so much to me that you felt safe in my presence and my energy. And it's really, I think, being authentic is one of the greatest gifts we have. And then within the inner circle of sisterhoods, being also transparent. It was really interesting. This, like, literally this dream that I had, Luna, was so crazy, because in my dream, I'm like angry at Gerald and I'm like kicking him towards something. There's these two entities there, which then I realized were jealousy and envy. And I'm like, I don't want to admit that this exists inside of me. There's this part that's like so jealous that I could be like angry and like kick. I would never do that in real life. But well, I can't, I mean, I guess that exists inside of me, but just to like express that and share that with a sister afterwards and be like, this is what came up for me. And I realized this was inside of me. And then that gave her permission to say, wow, I felt the same. And then just creating this ripple effect. So thank you for speaking to that. And really, if you're a sister listening to this, I guess just first, that safe space has to be created within ourselves. We have to allow ourselves to be okay with accepting that emotion or those things exist within us, and then creating the safe space through vulnerability, through authenticity, and when appropriate, transparency with the sisters we trust to be able to create the dialogue. So thank you for that. And
I want to say one more thing, Mayah, because there's this this idea that I think is very toxic, especially within the spiritual community all around the world, that I've noticed, that somehow, like, okay, if I'm not feeling pure self-love for myself, and I don't, I'm not perfect, and I'm not like, feeling good about myself all the time, then, you know that story, that idea is like, you have to love yourself completely in order for someone to love you. That's BS for me. I'm sorry, but that's BS. Like, we need each other. All of us. None of us are like Yoda, from Star Wars. That's like a perfect creature, or like, we're not there. We're not there. And it's beautiful that we're not there. We're not supposed to be Yoda. Yoda's awesome. I actually want like a little doll, like one day to get, for my birthday. But, we're not supposed to be that. We're supposed to experience all of these things, and to really allow a sister to express all the ugliness. Like, I'm talking ugliness. Like, I've shared stuff with my sisters, and like one part of me saying, don't share this because, you're a spiritual teacher and they will think badly of you and they will not appreciate you, and all these stuff, right? All this like stories. I need to protect myself. Like, I have to be perfect for everyone all the time. But then it's like, I shared the most ugliest thing, and they loved me even more, and they accepted me even more, and they appreciated me even more. And it's such a liberation. It's pure liberation that like no man can give me. No, absolutely no man, because a woman can contain me in a way that no man can, right? A true sister. And, there are women that are still in their part of their journey, that they're still in their toxic femininity. Unfortunately, many of them, that's okay. You trust your intuition, you trust your womb, and even there's no mistakes. Even if you fall into a lap of a toxic woman, you learn from it and you move on, and you learn to put your boundaries later. It is what it is. But it's like you said, like that perfection, that story of perfection, we all, not all of us, a lot of us have it. And I think the more conscious we are, the more, I know that I have it big time, like big time. It's like, I have to be perfect. No, I don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I have to be perfect in my integrity, and I have to be perfect. Not even be perfect, but constantly strive for more and more of perfection, in mastery, in my human.
I love that. My dear friend Tony Lister, I remember one time I was talking with him, I'm like, I can't wait till I'm enlightened. Can't wait till I reach that state where I'm enlightened. And he's like, what does enlightenment mean to you? And I'm like, when I don't feel all the things, like I don't feel anger or sorrow or jealousy or anything, I just feel, good all the time. Like I'm in that perfect state. And he's like, that's not enlightenment. He's like, enlightenment is allowing yourself to feel everything you're feeling and not making it wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
But I really like that.
That's numbing. That's basically being numb. Yeah. It sounds like numbness to me.
Well, okay. So I want to talk about a few more things. Oh my gosh, we might have to just do a second episode too, because I'm having so much fun. But we have.
I just love talking to you. I'm fine with it.
We have about just 5 or 10 more minutes left. But okay, so obviously I've read this book. I've got the other books coming. Two things are present on my mind, and you can decide which direction you want to go first, or maybe if we get to both of them or not. The other one of them is the power of actually symbols and signs when it comes to sex magic. So I'm curious about that. And then the other thing I'm curious about is how to really create the temple space when it comes to these practices. So I don't know if there's one you feel like you want to address more than the other. And also, before we do that, could you share with everybody listening what your other books are? So obviously this was your first one, right? Sex Magic Evolution. And then what are the other ones that you have out right now?
So the second one was Symbols of Sex Magic. It's a shorter one. And again, every book is full of codes, specific codes, and it will it's like you had people just have a moment of something shifts in them because they're full of the codes of the temple. And then you have The Last Priestess, the Sex Priestess Manual. I have the new book that's coming out in Lionsgate, August 8th, 2024, is Igniting the Dragon, which is my tiniest book, but it's so powerful. I'm very excited about it. It's really about working with the dragon energy. And I know I'm laughing like a little kid, but this book is really for the true light warriors that know what working with the dragon energy is or people that are curious and want to, because we need that more than anything now in the world. And then I have 2 kids books also, and I have a novel called Promised in Fire.
Okay, there's somebody I want to connect you with. Remind me after the show. Just remember dragon.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, before we get into these, this is totally a selfish question. I'm going to receive it. Which book do you think I should read next? Which one?
The Last Priestess.
The Last Priestess? Okay.
The Last Priestess.
All right, I got it. I'm sure I'm going to consume them very quickly.
And give it a couple of weeks after you read it. You will receive some either information like downloads or in a dream state, and then I would suggest you start playing with the Sex Priestess Manual.
I'm excited for that. And one thing I would recommend to everybody that's listening, this is kind of a funny and also embarrassing story. I began reading your book, and I skipped to the end, skipped the middle, and I went back and read it. I was like, no, I'm going to read the whole thing, but I want to see what's at the end. Did some of the practices, they had such power, and all of a sudden there was a little bit of chaos in my life. And then I read the middle of the book, and I'm like, oh, I should have read this all before I actually did the practice at the end of the book. So just a reminder to people, when you are working with these powerful practices, as Luna tells you at the very beginning of the book, read the whole thing. If you do skip ahead to the end, don't do the practices before you read the whole thing. Okay, that's my...
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's talk either, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about temples, or do you want to talk about the symbols?
Well, the symbols is going to be like a long, rabbit hole. But so you talking about temple space, I'm assuming you're speaking about a space that a couple can create with their union?
When we're doing these practices, so there's these ancient temples that we talked about. One of the things that has been on my heart recently, and I know I've talked with you a little bit about this. I talked to a woman yesterday who, she'll be a guest on the podcast sometime soon. She actually wrote a book about sex magic in a foreign country and was taken prisoner and whipped for the things that she wrote. These are things that are coming out that need to be had now, and not everybody wants this information out. And one of the things that I think is really important is, as we do these practices, creating safe spaces for them. And it doesn't mean that we don't talk about them or we don't stir things up. I mean, some of this needs to happen in order for us to create a new dialogue around all of this and create acceptance. But when we're actually doing these practices, how do you create the temple, either within yourself or around you? Or are there actual temples where people can go to practice this? How would you direct somebody in really creating a safe space?
Yeah. So again, we can have a long conversation about this, because I have so many things I want to say about that. But now I'm going to tell you a few things. First of all, you are the temple. Number one, you don't have to go to a specific place, on the planet to create this energy. Number two, unless you are called to go there and you have specific codes that specific place has for you, which this is what I've been doing for 20 years. I've been just a gypsy traveling around the world doing my work. I I'm not going to give you the fluffy answer here because it's not important. Oh, let's put candles and let's, make a safe space and clean it with some sage. That's obvious, right? Like, and that's the last thing. That's like literally the last stage. Creating this actual sacred space takes your commitment. Again, it takes your commitment to your path of initiation. What am I choosing the first moment I wake up in the morning until I go to sleep? Like, what am I going to eat? Am I going to eat the bacon, which literally I'm going to unite and penetrate with the energy of suffering and pain and trauma in my body? Or am I going to pick an apple? So, or in my case, like hot cacao. So what am I going to play with? What energies am I going to unite with? Am I going to lie to my friend about something, or am I going to hold space for someone's healing? This is every small moment in our life, every little decision is our initiation, is accumulated into that moment that we actually come into that sacred union. So it all matters. And the more you prepare, the more powerful it will be, the more immense and sacred it will be. So it's not just the actual preparing the altar space or the union space, but it's everything around it. And again, this is the quick answer, right? Like right now.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that, because I do feel that deeply. And if we are the temples, what are we doing with our energy? What are we putting inside of our temples? Not just, in our pussy, but also in our mouths. What is entering in our field of awareness in our space? And one of the things that has continued to fascinate me as I've talked to people who are really making a big difference in the world and who are happy doing it. Those who, it doesn't mean they don't have hard moments. These are people that are willing to go deep, but it's always about creating that space within us first. It's about the self-practice, the devotion, the time with ourselves. And one of the things that you do bring up in the book, and I think this is so important, is before any sacred union between two people, there has to be the sacred union within self. So the individual practices are so important, the preparation. And when I read this part of the book, I had this vision opened up in my mind. I don't know if it was a past remembrance. I think it was, but of, a woman being in the temple and just preparing herself with water, preparing her mind, preparing her space, and then a man preparing himself and cleansing and going through different rituals and processes, so that when they entered the space together, it was just from this place of sacredness and preparation and ritual. And I could feel the energy. It's almost like, these slingshot being pulled back the more and more we prepare, and then, this cosmic explosion as these two, cosmic beings crash into each other. So, thank you so much.
Yeah. Think about the fact that in the temple, and again, the temple was in the past, but it's also right now, because there is no time. Like, the temple actually exists right now parallel to us. That's how they communicate with me. But you think about the fact of how they prepare themselves for each other in such high level of sacredness that we can't even grasp today, right? And in the time of the temple of Isis and Lilith specifically, because there were many temples and many different dimensions, the temple that I'm connected to, there were no such things. It was such high vibration. It's in the 5th dimension. So there was no things like negative spirits or demons or things like that. And this is one of the things that I talk about for 8 years now. And this is one of the reasons I'm not very popular, because, again, I will not give you the fluffiness, because I have to speak the truth. The demonic entities are real. I see them every single day. I have seen them since I was a kid. And especially with a sexual exchange, sex is marriage, sex is a portal, especially when we are preparing ourselves for such an immense event, we think again, like, they prepared so much and they didn't have demonic entities, and we're like, oh, let's just have sex in the toilet of the bar, with some guy we don't know, or like something like that, completely uniting with other people's demons all the time. And it's again, it's not out of fear. I don't want to scare people. But I have to speak the truth because this is true. And the more we know this knowledge, we have more power over it. And it doesn't control us anymore. Because these dark wizards, as I tell in my story, are real. I cannot tell you how many times they've tried to penetrate me and infiltrate me. And they cannot touch me because I'm untouchable. But they can hurt my work. They can hurt my social media. They can hurt other things around me. But they are real. And we have to know about black magic so that we can come at it with pure white magic. And how are we going to do that if we don't know? And if we don't talk about the ugly things that are happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are so many things that are happening and so many ways in which sexual power can be misused and, like you said, projected onto other things. And so really what I hope and my biggest takeaway from this podcast is for us to take a stand, for us to, first of all, talk about these things and then take a stand for the power of sexual energy and really creating space to transmute that in the way that's in the light. And thank you. Hopefully this just is the beginning of the conversation for people to find out more about this. You know, one interesting thing, it's interesting because for the past 5 minutes, this has been wanting to come through and then I'm like, no, I shouldn't share it. Yes, I should. No, I should. So I'm going to share it because I feel like it needs to be shared. And then I'd love to hear your final thoughts before we end. But one of the things you talk about, and I think it's really important for women to know that are entering into this work, is you can actually get initiations from these divine feminine archetypes to themselves. Like you can go to, and you should go to mentors and leaders and also be open to asking, what do you want me to know? What information's coming through? And it was interesting for me recently, Lilith started coming through, and I've really had very, very little awareness of Lilith. The only foundation that I had was that she was in the Garden of Eden and was somehow Adam's first wife and got kicked out because she wouldn't be submissive to him, and then Eve was created. It was really interesting because as I was sitting with the story and just asked, you know, can I have more information about this? The story came through that's really beautiful, and it's one that I choose to believe is truth, is that Lilith was actually the representation of the divine feminine archetype of creation. And she wasn't there to not be submissive to Adam. She was there to teach them about sex magic and creation. And, you know, it talks about the serpent, but really the serpent in the apple was Lilith saying to Eve, here is a power that I'm going to teach you about sex magic, about creation, and then you can choose your sacred union with Adam, which then she went to Adam and they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, which I just believe is them willing to be like, wow, I'm going to take ownership and be now the creator and the creatrix of my life. But what was so beautiful about this is this whole story and perception and curiosity that I had was just fulfilled by me listening. And suddenly I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what happened. And she fulfilled her mission within that creation and then went to Samaria and, you know, started the temples and completed and kept on with her work. And so, again, if you're feeling called towards these priestess initiations, sex magic evolution, just ask for answers.
Because they will call you. They will call you when you're ready. They will always call you. And I must say something, you know, first of all, you know, Lilith in Hebrew, her name, which is, by the way, like my original name that I was given is Lilach. So I'm very like, it's like I was literally meant to do this work. And, you know, the apple and the snake represent wisdom. You know, my shadow animal is actually the white cobra, which is all about pure, not just wisdom, but the purest wisdom, right? Like the elevated wisdom that's coming from source.
Which is mine's a white panther, which is the protector. But so yeah.
So my spirit animal is a black panther, but my shadow animal is a white cobra. And you know, by the way, women who have not all women that have a big cat as their spirit animal is a sex priestess, but most of us are. Just so you know. And because the big cats as a spirit animal hold a specific codes for the sex priestesses. So all the sex priestesses are big cats, but not all big cats are sex priestesses. If that makes sense. And so so what did she want to give Eve? She wanted to give her knowledge. And the dark wizards, the dark masculine energy, as I call it in my books, wanted to suppress knowledge, wanted to suppress the truth, right? And again, we see the distortion. We see the dark wizards and the dark masculine energy cannot create their own stories. They because there's no creation power in dark magic or that energy. They take from the light, so they take a snippet of the truth and distort it, right? So they take something from the light and distort it. This is black magic, literally. It's taking the light and distorting it. And what we do when now, hopefully in our evolution, more and more people is first of all, we need the knowledge. We need to know what black magic is so that we can do the opposite, right? Like take it and not distort it, but bring it back to the original template. So I wanted to say so many more things about it, but my brain is like, anyway, I wanted to say another thing, but I forgot. So much.
Thank you for that. And truth will be truth. And what's so interesting is after having that whole vision and download open to me about Lilith, I'm like, of course this makes sense. And then I started, looking it up, and other people had the same download, and I didn't know that before. It's just truth. Truth is truth. And
yeah. Oh, and I know what I wanted to say. So something that you were talking about, right? Because every woman, see, a specific archetype will call a woman when it's her time to be initiated. What I really want to stress is that, and I've seen this endless times, we really have to use our discernment, because again, I know that people don't want to talk about this, but the spiritual community especially has been infiltrated by the dark forces. I'm just going to say it out loud. And so there is a lot of, when people are not doing the first thing, which is purification, elevating their energy, their frequency, what happens is that if they're in a lower frequency, they're going to attach them. They're going to be an invitation almost for any lower frequency demonic entity. And, we don't have to be scared. Demon doesn't have to be like a scary, horrible thing, although a lot of them are, but it could be just a lower frequency that, just doesn't hold truth in the highest good. And so I see so many people getting lost. I'm like, oh, I was called by Mary Magdalene. I was called by Isis. I was called by this and whatever. They can say any name, but I can see in their frequency that they're actually possessed by a demonic entity. So, and again, this is just, I'm trying to put it into simple words. So our job is to really, we don't have to go and, I want to be called by someone. No. Because when you say, I want to be called by an entity or something, then you can actually invite lower vibration entities. Your job is to just make sure that you are at the highest vibration possible. Again, don't have sex with everyone. Don't eat animal products. Don't take weird stuff into your body that will lower your vibration. And then when the time is right, you can have force initiation, right? Like you can ask for it. You can prepare yourself for it with integrity, with respect. And then it will call you. Even me, I take women on a year, my initiation is between 12 and 18 months. It's very long, but I'm not the one taking them through initiation. They are taking themselves through initiation. Like no one can do it for you, including me. No one. It's especially not in the time that we live in right now. We are not in the time of the temple where we had a sister taking another sister under initiation. What I can do now within the construct of our evolutionary state, to say these words, then I can guide her into her own initiation. But it's not like does it make sense what I'm saying? I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I am constantly guided by the sisters, by Lilith, by Isis, and I give the woman what she needs in the moment in order for her to have the best path of initiation that she can take into her highest, greater self, for lack of a better word.
Amen on that. I feel the exact same way. And if anybody comes in my space and they're like wanting activation or initiation, I give them the tools to be able to access that, and create that for themselves. And all of my initiations that I've received from these divine archetypes, none of them have I been like, oh, I'm going to get an initiation tonight. It's
Right.
Carrying it on the
Exactly. It
path,
doesn't
and
go
then
like
suddenly
that.
something happens. I'm like, oh wow, I think this is happening. But yeah, I could talk so much more with
Exactly.
you. Here's what I want to say. It's time for us to end. I see you as a vessel of light and truth and wisdom. And for those listening and seeking for light and truth and wisdom, get these books. Stay in Luna's field. Like, I cannot wait to read the other books. I owned a publishing company for years, and there are just certain books that resonate with truth. And not only do the words in the book speak truth, but the whole vibrational frequency of the book is truth. And just having this in my physical presence and auric field and in my home, there are codes being constantly downloaded. It's like a portal of codes. So I agree with you on that. And Luna, I want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the work that you're doing, for being willing to speak the truth. And I know it's not always easy. I know there's many other paths you could have chosen that would have been much easier, but thank you. This is the one that's needed. This is what's called for you in this lifetime. And you are such an example of a woman that just says, I am going to fulfill my mission and my path. And that's it. Like, I'm not going to let anything detour me. So thank you for that. Any final words you want to leave before we end?
Let's just like live truth, guys. Let's put the BS aside, be authentic, make sure that we are birthing more light and not more shadows into the world, because we don't need it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I
Thank
send
you,
you
dear.
so much love. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, legendary explorers, for joining us on this cosmic journey today.
Your curiosity fuels our exploration of psychedelics and sex and the superconscious.
If you're hungry for more, dive into our website and connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes.
And stay tuned for our next mind-expanding episode. We can't wait to talk to you again in our next adventure.
Until then, remember, this is your life. So,
make it legendary.